Just stay tuned there, hold with me for a couple of seconds, and we are indeed live. So good evening, everybody. My name is Henry Villa, as some of you know already. I'm the managing director of Stone Horizon, where we specialize in designing, building, and operating kind of rooming houses for investors. So today I'm here again. Some of you have been following me over the last few nights in the warm-up to the 3-day event that we have coming up in only a couple of weeks. So if you haven't registered yet, please follow the links below, around here, or in the bio, where you'll be able to access this free Zoom event. I'll talk a little bit more about the event at the end, after I give you a little bit of a secret tip. So today, I'm here. You can probably see here, I'm a couple cameras, a couple setup. I have actually some paper here, so I can kind of do some drawings and ultimately kind of share with you a lot of knowledge around this particular area, the area of tenants. So today we're going to talk about tenants, because tenants are ultimately the ones that make this whole system work. It's an incredibly important part for the whole strategy to actually work. And many of you have asked us a whole bunch of questions around tenants. There's so many misconceptions out there that we thought today is the day that we set a lot of those misconceptions to the one side. My comments here, I can see the feeds, I can see the questions here. I have Instagram there, I have Facebook and LinkedIn over here. So start by giving me a like. Let me know if you're here, where are you watching from? Have you watched many of these from us before? Send me a little bit of thumbs up or a little heart to let me know that you're alive and not that I'm just talking to the ether, although plenty of people will see this stuff recorded. So if you're seeing it recorded, hopefully this is useful. Let us know kind of below. Again, send us a like, send us a little heart to know that you're here. So let's talk about the ultimate, question that we get many investors or from many investors over the years, and particularly recently. It's like, who the hell actually lives in a rooming house, right? Who are the people who kind of go into these places and kind of make them their home? Because many of us and our investors look at the type of properties we build, and they might think, well, maybe that is not the kind of property that I will choose to live in, particularly for those of us who have kids and families and wives and dogs and pets. A rooming house might not be the first idea that we get kind of around the place to live. But for some people, though, a rooming house, and particularly the studio rental rooming houses that we built and that we have turned into a little bit of our specialty, it's the perfect place to be. Many tenants love these places, and to be honest, many of them will not change it for anything else. They wouldn't change it for other type of accommodations. In fact, many of them come precisely from living in other types of accommodation, and once they discover a Stone Horizon rooming house, they will never change it again. It's kind of what we see over and over again. So why would someone choose to live in a rooming house? Why would someone will choose to live in a studio rental Stone Horizon property, or in fact any other Stone Horizon property? We obviously build a number of different properties for a number of different people with a number of different approaches and different strategies. So maybe I'll start there. Maybe I'll start by reminding you what a Stone Horizon property looks like and what a stone horizon property feels like. Stone horizon property is for the majority of them, it's what we call studio rentals. We call them stone horizon studio rentals. It's a little bit of a stone horizon, obviously being a registered trademark. We have created our own version of this strategy based on the general regulation that surrounds the rooming house legislation, the rooming house regulation. However, each of our properties is unique in its own way because we designed them to fit the block of land that they're in. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of design principles and design strategies that make a stone horizon property unique compared to other rooming houses out there, but very, very consistent experience for the resident across properties. And in fact, we have tenants who have gone from one property for whatever reason they no longer need to live in that area, are looking to move into a different area. And the first question we get from many of them is, listen, is there a stone horizon property that does have availability in this other area that I'm about to move? Unfortunately, most of the time the answer is no, because our portfolio is, has such a high, such a low vacancy rate and such a high utilization that it's, while we have properties in many places, and it's very, very likely that we're going to have a property in the area that the person wants to move in, it's actually not that common that we'll have a vacancy there because our vacancy level is so low. Why do people actually choose to kind of live in these places? And I think it's important that we recognize a couple of big reasons. The first of those reasons, which is the one that most people immediately think of, is that rental in a stone horizon rooming house is cheaper. It's a lot cheaper than going and renting a house. It's a lot cheaper, that a lot more affordable than going out and renting a unit or an apartment in many cases. And in many cases, it's actually a lot cheaper than going into other type of accommodation. But that is not the only reason why the residents of our properties choose to live in a stone horizon property. It's probably important to recognize that a stone horizon property, while being more affordable than other types of accommodation, it's still, it's still a premium product, and it's still probably not the cheapest source of accommodation in the market. We don't go for cheap accommodation, we go for affordable accommodation. And because of that, a lot of our residents move to a stone horizon property not because it's the cheapest, but sometimes because it's a better fit for their lifestyle. Sometimes it's because it's a better fit for the type of life that they wanna have. And a good example is someone who could afford a townhouse or an apartment or a bigger property, yet chooses to move into a stone horizon property because they don't want to do any maintenance. They don't want to take care of the lawn. They don't want to take care of cleaning the common areas. They don't want to take care of the maintenance or the cleaning or any of these other chores that, while we have grown used to, we're very, very quickly learning, particularly from our overseas experience and from people doing this type of properties in other countries, not only are not necessary, but more and more are people choosing to live a lifestyle where everything is done for them, so they can focus their time and their life on having experiences and doing work in ways that are consistent with the way they want to live their lives. So again, two main reasons why people will live in a rooming house. The first one is more affordable or it's cheaper. The second thing is because they don't want to create extra burden that a typical property or the regular property will have. You know, they don't want to do the maintenance, they don't want to mow the lawn, they don't want to pay bills, right? In a Stone Horizon property, all bills are included, all the services are kind of paid for, water, gas, electricity, and internet is included kind of for free in most of our properties. So, you know, by having a single payment, single rent that comes out of your bank account, you know, every fortnight or every week or every month, depending on the property, you don't need to worry about anything else. It's a hassle-free type of accommodation. You can go into your studio, spend the time you need to spend there, and when you're ready to kind of move on to the next thing in life, you kind of close the door behind you, don't need to worry about anything, kind of go out. And in fact, most of our residents spend a lot of their time outside of the rooming house, and when they're in the rooming house, they're obviously in their studio. So who is these people? Who are these people that are super interested in getting affordable accommodation and super interested in doing no maintenance, no work, paying no bills? Well, there is 4 types of people we tend to see in our properties. And most of our properties have a combination of these people. Most of the properties we see have a combination of this. Some are a good match for each other. Some are probably not nearly as good, but we'll cover each of those. And if you stay till the end, or stay to the end, because there's kind of a 4B section that I think it's important for us to talk about. And we're actually working on a couple of projects at the moment, which are not quite public yet, that will address that pseudo 5th version of these residents. And I think it's something that it's given us here at Stone Horizon. We're very proud of the work we're going to do there, and the investors into those specific properties. It's really, you know, kind of warming their hearts, and we kind of applaud them for partnering with us in kind of going down that path. So let's talk about the first 4 items, the first 4 types of residents that go into a rooming house. The first one, and I'm actually, again, going on this theme that we've gone over the last few nights, I'm going to give you, 20 seconds to guess, but it's the one that most investors and most normal people kind of think about. So again, I'm going to go and give you an extra 10, 15 seconds while I have a sip of my trusty Pepsi Max over here. Let you know, put in the comment below, give us a like if you think you know what it is, and then put in the comments, what do you think it is? There'll be a special prize in our event for those who guessed it, or guess for the first one to guess it, or maybe we'll take a random set if more than one person kind of gets it right. So again, 10 seconds. I wish I had a kind of timer, be like, the price is right type of thing for you to think. 10, 15 seconds. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think is this first class of tenants that we put in our rooming houses, the one that most people think about? I'll give you a tip, is because a lot of us have been one of these guys at some point in our lives. All right, another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. All right. Ship has sailed. You missed the opportunity to earn your prize if you haven't put your answer yet. The first group that we're talking about is students, right? And like I said, many of us can sympathize with that particular class because a lot of us have been students. And, students have, a particular characteristic. They're obviously very, very price conscious. They actually take a lot of advantage of affordable accommodation in this shape, which means that we can create a really, really, really big difference. But they also don't need much. They actually just want a nice place to go and sleep because, you know, they actually don't need all the facilities, right? They don't need a lounge and a living room and a rumpus room and, you know, al frescoes or any of that stuff. Most of them focus their time on going to uni, learning what they need to learn, you know, progress on their studies, and then just need a good, solid place to sleep. There's a couple of things that are particularly different with students, and I'm actually going to cover one of those right now. I'm going to turn, turn into this other camera so I can show you here some notes. Hopefully, you get to see this. Let me know if you don't. But the big thing with students is that it is a very, very seasonal class of tenants, right? Particularly in the international student market. And if I can draw this here, right? So, you know, we have the typical year starts in January, finishes in December. You have sort of a big kind of line there from the beginning of the from the beginning of the school year or the university year all the way to December. But school doesn't really start in January, right? School tends to start sort of end of January, sometimes early February, depending on what sort of program they're going. So let's say for a moment that, you know, they're over here, right? And at the same time, university don't finish in December, right? I don't know you guys, but thanks God when I did my master course here, you know, by about November, we were pretty much wrapping up in preparation for exams and, you know, assessments, and then kind of moving on through the summer. So what that effectively means is that most student tenants live in this particular continuum there. That's kind of the time that they're there. You know, in most student housing operations and in most Stone Horizon rooming houses that are heavily geared to our students, we need to make sure that most of the money we're making, most of the returns from these investments comes during this period, right? That from about end of January to late November, early December, that is the period where the house is going to be full, where the house is going to be fully rented. And then obviously during some of these other periods over here and over there, it's more likely that we're going to have vacancies. But if that's all factored into the financial model, it's actually not a big problem. Also, if students happen to stick around, whether it's because they have, you know, summer jobs, or because they're having internships, or because they're just need a place to live during that period, then, you know, there can be extra rent during those periods, right? There's a second thing that makes it good, is a flip side of this, right? Which is most students who move into Stone Horizon properties that are focused to our students tend to move in at that period, right? And then not a lot tends to happen between here and the end of the financial year. Sorry, and the end of the student year, and the end of the academic year. What that effectively means is that depending on the time and depending on the property and depending on the location, we might end up finishing the construction of a house somewhere around here, and then very, very quickly have the house all filled in into one go, with the certainty that if these people moved in here, they're a little bit unlikely to move out during that period. Because of course, what tends to happen with student accommodation is that they probably don't have a lot of other places to go, because every single student rooming house will probably be rented, particularly in tight markets where students are the majority of the traffic. However, couple downsides here. of this seasonality, other than the vacancy over there, is the fact that if you lose a student around here somewhere because that student has chosen not to continue their studies, or they have, God forbid, breached the conditions of their visas, or dad has asked them to come back home, or a change in circumstances have happened, then it's really, really hard to find another student here mid-year. Super, super hard, which means that you might have to put up with that vacancy for a longer period of time, or in the case of what we've done in the past, you might need to switch strategies a little bit and get into a hybrid model where students is a portion of the tenants in the property, but not the entirety of it. So again, not an end of things, but something to be super aware of, particularly if students are a market that you're going after. Obviously, as we go through the process of working with our clients and selecting areas and looking at where we're going to go, students is a portion of what we look at, but we make sure that we have those discussions in details, right? Now, the second group is, I guess, welfare recipients, right? Social housing, people on benefits. There's a number of names that are given to this group of people, some of which are not particularly nice, so I'm not going to repeat them here, out of respect to our residents, because they're humans and they receive the dignity and the respect that every human being needs to do. But unfortunately, not everyone kind of gives it to them. But it's basically anyone whose large portion of their income it comes either out of unemployment benefits or Centrelink or things like that. And there's a couple of things that we probably want to cover here that we want to make sure that we understand. The first one is, and it's one of the attractive things of this particular cohort of people, this particular group of people, is that the income of these people, it's kind of guaranteed, right? And I say that in inverted commas because, nothing is guaranteed in life. But these people are already in a situation where they do not work for a living for most of it, and it's unlikely that their income is going to significantly reduce because in many instances, they're already at a point where the safety net of our society, which thankfully we have, has kind of stepped in and is providing things like rental assistance and other income supplements to be able to allow them to have a kind of reasonable life. The second good thing here is the fact that there's a system around the benefit system, which we'll cover in detail in a different conversation, that allows the rent to be paid directly out of the benefits before those benefits go into the recipient bank account. So effectively what that happens is your rent gets paid effectively by the government out of the residents' benefit amount before it lands on the resident's account. That tends to do great around reduce temptation, and particularly because some of the tenants in this space have historic behavioral issues, sometimes around alcohol, sometimes around gambling, sometimes around other areas. So the temptation is there, you get paid first. Again, not a group of tenants that is a good fit for every rooming house, and certainly not a good fit for every investor, but it's certainly something to take into account. They tend to be kind of very profitable. They don't tend to move a lot, which means that vacancy rates don't tend to be kind of big, but there's obviously other issues that need to be kind of dealt with. Then the next group is it's our favorite one, is the one that, almost every rooming house operator out there is kind of looking forward to. And in fact, it's the one that Mark here on Facebook commented as his first guess around which one will be the most common one and the first group that I was going to cover. So Mark, well done. You don't get a prize, unfortunately, but I guess you get a wooden spoon, I will call it. Probably not. Again, you're probably ahead of a lot of the other people here, and thank you for participating, making this night a little bit less lonely for those on this side of the camera. But yeah, second group, so third group is young professionals. Now, young professionals is a thing, and you guys can probably see behind me the poster. It's kind of one of our kind of big things, modern living for young professionals. It's something that we created as a little bit of a trademark, as a little bit of an approach for us to kind of push out there in the market, to take into account into our design principles, because we love these people. These tend to be mostly younger people in their 20s and 30s, although, I guess you could be young at 40 and 50 in many instances, that are, they're starting their career. They don't have a family yet. They might have, a partner or a couple, but, they don't need a huge amount of space. They might be saving to buy their own house. A few of our residents at the moment are actually going kind of through that process, but they are looking for really, really high quality accommodation at an affordable price, and they're willing to sacrifice the space to be able to do that. They're willing to kind of look at, smaller space at a high quality to kind of live there, I guess. Couple things that make these people special, right? And I probably should start by saying everyone wants these guys. Yeah, everybody wants them. Every investor wants to have these guys in there. Every rooming house operator in the country probably wants to have these guys there. Even community organizations tend to push these people to the front of the queue. And in many instances, these people tend to be enough to fill the whole property. Although, again, not in all cases. And that's for a few reasons. The first one is these people are more educated, right? By definition, these people are all holding a job. Many of them have been to university or to trade college, or they've developed a set of skills that allows them to keep a steady job. Most of the people in this group do have a job. All of them will eventually kind of have a job. In fact, most of them do. The second thing that is different compared to the previous two groups is that they make more money. They have higher income. And of course, higher income is good for two reasons. The first one is they're unlikely to not pay rent because, again, they have the money. They have the money to maintain a lifestyle. And in comparison to their income, their rent in a Stone Horizon property is incredibly affordable. So they want to maintain their payments up to date. The third thing that is good is these people don't have a lot of time. And you will probably question, why is that a good thing? And why do we want more of these people? Because they don't have much time. And it's simple. When you don't have a lot of time, a couple of things tend to happen. So the first one is you're living a busy life, and that life is probably outside of the rooming house. It's with your friends, it's with work in many instances. A lot of the nurses and doctors and engineers and tradespeople that kind of live in our properties, they go to their properties to sleep, right? They basically out of there most of the time. And when they're in the property, they're basically sleeping. They go to the studio, maybe watch TV for a couple hours, or do a little bit of work in a desk, or maybe watch an iPad or watch the game, and then it's off to bed. That is great for maintenance, and it's great for simple operations, right? Because people spend a lot of time there, a lot less time there. There's a lot less interaction. There's a lot less wear and tear, and the properties get better maintained Also, because they have a higher income, they're willing to pay that little bit extra for high quality accommodation, which allows us to build properties that are higher end in nature with better finishes, and then make the exercise kind of worthwhile. Then the final and fourth group of people is what we call single retirees. And these are people who are at the later season of life, at the later season of their careers, sometimes in their 50s and 60s, and sometimes even later, who are, for whatever reason, they're now on their own. They're widowed or divorced. The kids, in many instances, if they were ever kind of children, they're now grown up, and in many instances they're kind of living somewhere else, and they have a big need to maximize the money they have left, right? For whatever reason, they haven't maybe made the best decisions along the way, or maybe they're like many people who are asset rich because maybe the home was already paid, and maybe they have a whole bunch of assets, but those assets are not high cash flow assets, and in fact, they go and dispose of those assets, sell the family home, sell the property they have, and then now they have a finite pool of money that they need to kind of make last. And they decide that, they have done the house, they have done the kind of big mansion or the kind of big property, and now they just want a safe, high quality, but perfectly small place kind of to live in. The great thing about these guys is many of them, they're used to living in a house. Like I said, many of them have been homeowners in the past. Many of them used to have kind of big properties. Many of them have, are used to, maintenance, and they're used to taking care of the property. So they take care of these properties and these studios as if it was their own. And that's great for not only for us as operators, but obviously for the investors as well. And ultimately, because they're older, they're more mature, they tend to be more responsible, right? There's no misbehaviors. There's no kind of noise. There's no people making kind of big kind of disagreements. There's no fights. There don't tend to be a lot of that. These tend to be quiet people that keep to themselves, or that they have a relationship with other people in the rooming house almost from a neighbor perspective rather than from a housemate perspective. It is actually one of those areas where it makes a big difference to the community, big difference to them, and we're really, really proud that we have made these one of our key groups of tenants that we kind of help and can provide some affordable accommodation to. And in fact, I said at the beginning that I had a bit of a bonus for you, and a special one. And again, I hope that I can talk publicly about this very, very soon. We're still working on contracts and deals and these sort of things. But we're working with a particular client who is going to take this fourth group of single retirees and, dig down into a group that needs even more help. And see, this particular client of ours, it's building not only a Stone Horizon property, a rooming house to put single retirees on it, but to put the most vulnerable group of single retirees that you can think of. And it's single women, single retiree women who come from, in many cases, domestic violence situations. And what these properties are creating is a very, very special thing. It's actually incredibly heartwarming to think that we're going to be involved in projects like this. And like I said, I'm hoping I can share some more of the details with you really, really soon. But it's exactly the main reason why we started Stone Horizon all those years ago, is have a tool and a strategy that can create a massive difference to the investor by providing incredible returns in this sort of new generation of residential properties, but also can make a big, big difference to the community. Like I said, I'm hoping I can talk more about this. Those of you who've been kind of watching us for the next few days, you know, we have this 3-day event coming up just a couple weeks away. You know, you'll see in the comments now, you know, my team have put in the page to register, so feel free to kind of go and register there. You know, we prepare three packed sessions over a period of 3 days to cover, you know, the first steps that every investor, doesn't matter if you're starting from zero, can take to make their first investment and acquire their first high cash flow property. The event is called the High Cash Flow Property Roadmap Training. Again, it's over 3 days. It's completely free. You'll be able to see it live. The only thing is it's only for people who register. It won't be live here the same way these sessions have been. You need to register because what we're sharing there is incredibly valuable. We're sharing the actual blueprint that many Stone Horizon investors have used to not only invest in their first property, many of them, but even experienced investors have used to be able to turn their portfolios around and get started on their journey of quitting the rat race and finally getting the financial freedom that most of us kind of desire through high cash flow property investment. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them below. We're on the final stages of preparing the material for those 3 days. I keep pumping, you know, material into it because we want to make it super packed, full of information that won't be available in these sessions, won't be available anywhere else really, and only those who register and take the opportunity to take action will get a chance to know, right? It's a little bit of black magic, like I said in one of these other sessions. And once you know what's possible, you can't help but see it. Again, link below. Feel free to leave us comments. It's been great to spend some time with you guys. Again, look forward to seeing many of you in the 3-day workshop and in the 3-day event that we have coming up, the High Cash Flow Property Roadmap Training that will provide you with the secret of how to get started on investing in high cash flow kind of real estate. See many of you soon. Have a good night. Take care.